Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to go over how I keep track of my finances. I've actually made a video similar to this called How I Manage My Finances or How I Manage My Money. I will link that down below. It kind of goes into detail of how I actually log into my accounts, and I do share some spreadsheets and other things that are going to be similar to this video. But for this video specifically, I want to share my screen. I'm going to share the spreadsheets that I actually use. There are also going to be links down below for you to use these spreadsheets yourself if you like them or if you want to try them out. So I will be talking about my finances in regards to tracking my debt, tracking my budget, well, recording my budget and tracking my spending, tracking the income I make online as well as my expenses, and then my net worth. Now to start, I did want to share my journal, my little notebook here, because this is where I do track some of my money. As you guys know, when I share my budget videos and my finance updates, I'm always using a notebook of some sort, and that is primarily for YouTube. So I do dedicate a couple of pages each month to my budget and my spending, as well as the income that I make online and my expenses. Now, like I said, this is only for YouTube so that I can record it and write it down. It seems that people really prefer for me to write it down rather than fill out a spreadsheet. I don't know if that's still true. I think I had asked in a video a while back if people prefer to see my spreadsheets like online, like Google Spreadsheets I use, or if they prefer for me to write it down. And almost everybody said that they prefer this or they don't mind. So I continue this. If you prefer to see my spreadsheets every single month, please let me know. Honestly, I don't mind either one. So if you watch any of my finance updates, you will see exactly how I use this. It's basically, this is just my budget. I fill this out at the beginning of the month, and then I complete it at the end of the month and also fill in how much debt I paid off, how much I've paid off from the beginning, the percentage, my sinking funds, my Roth IRA, my current net worth, and everything else that has to do with my debt and finances overall. And then again, I have a video for this, extra or online income videos I write on paper, and this is just a breakdown of the income I make and how much it is. I will say the one thing that I do for myself is this little calendar month. So I will just create a small little calendar, and the red is my expenses that I expect to come out on those days. And I like this just so I can have a visual of what I can expect to be coming out of my bank account for the month and on which day, so that if I want to make a big debt payment, I need to make sure I have enough money for the rest of the month until I get paid the next time. And then another thing I do for myself is the debt trackers. I have showed these before, and I did create new ones versus last year, but I do have one on my wall right here. It's a thermometer, and that one is just ongoing because it includes all of my debt, and so I color that in each time I get below that number, so I can put up a video shot of that. But this one is over here is total debt overall, and then this is broken down by debt avalanche and every single loan on its own. So each time I pay off debt, I color this in, and it's very satisfying. I haven't been able to do that recently because of just saving for my student loans, but I do have multiple trackers. I have this one, I have that thermometer, and then there's one on my fridge, which is kind of like a 5-year calendar spread, and I just write down how much debt I paid off that month and my total debt at the end of the month. However, most of the action happens on my Google Spreadsheets. I have multiple Google Spreadsheets, and I've been using these for years now. So for the most part, things have been about the same for 2 years. I have made changes as time goes on because I find new ways to do things, or I prefer to do things in certain ways, and this is just what works for me. And I do have templates available for all of this. Well, aside from the debt one, because it's fairly straightforward, but that's what I'm going to start with actually, is how I track my debt every single month. And I have my debt on one spreadsheet, and it stands on its own. So I call that my debt breakdown spreadsheet. So I'm gonna go down to the corner and I'm gonna put up my spreadsheet on the screen now. Like I said, this is my debt breakdown, and I have been doing this since February of 2018, as you can see down here at the bottom. And it basically always has looked like this, but you can see here that I have quite a lot of debt and different things, but I changed it soon after. So this is literally just keeping track of the loan, who I owe the money to, the starting balance, what the balance is at the start of the month, the interest rate on that loan, the minimum payment due, the actual payment I made that month, and the final balance at the end of the month. Now, over on the right side, I do keep track of all of my income. So this will be anything I make online, anything extra outside of that. And at the time I had a different job, so you can see I was earning a lot less each month. So I was keeping track of my work income on here and then adding it up with everything else I got. So this started in February 2018, and I have tabs all across for every single month since then. And I'm gonna go to February of 2021. As you can see, it's about the same. And honestly, I really could just remove the bulk of these. Like the Care Credit, You Promise, these have had a zero balance for years. And so I probably will, starting in March, just remove it and put it down to my student loans, because that's all I have left. Now, I don't remember exactly which month I made the transition, but I eventually just started putting student loans as one total sum, because it is, and you can see I have the various interest rates. Obviously right now it's at 0%, but at some point in my journey I did start doing that because I wasn't paying extra to it like that. But it is exactly the same, and it's been the same since February 2018. So same thing across the top, and then again I keep track of where I made my money and how much it was, and then it adds up here. I don't put my full-time income on here. I could if I wanted to, it's not a big deal, but I do keep track of that on a different spreadsheet. Down here is just me messing with numbers, so typically it doesn't look like that. It would look more like this, where I'm just keeping track of my debt and then my income. I do have this set up to automatically calculate how much debt I paid off in the month, and then also to automatically calculate the interest that I paid for the month. So you can see the formula is always up here, and it's very easy to set up to do that. I wanted to keep seeing how much interest I was paying each month, and it's pretty crazy. Let's share if I can. I know I didn't do this forever, but I was. So you can see, let's go back to my early journey. Interest paid $290. It was just in a different spot. Look, I went into further debt back in June of 2018, 215 in interest, 410 in interest. You can see, like, it's pretty cool to just see the evolution of your everything, you know, just tracking everything that you possibly can, because it's very interesting and very nice to look back on. Because obviously, look, February 2019, $263, and then 2 years later, $2. So now it's $0, which is awesome. So that's why I do like to keep track of everything, because of that reason. Like, you get to see your progress and it makes you feel good. The next thing I'll show you is my spending and budget tracker, and this actually has quite a bit going on within just the tracker itself. So first, this is the main portion, and this is where I record my budget initially. And I like this because everything totals up on its own. So before I write everything down for you guys on YouTube, this is where I enter it first, and that's how I get my numbers. That's why sometimes if something isn't inputted, I make an error when I write it down, because I'm relying on this. Now I do break this down by the month, obviously, and then there's a little gray barrier between each of these. I prefer for it to all be on one tab, just so I can access it readily. Obviously with the debt, it's a new tab for every single month, but I just prefer for this to be all in one tab. I did start color coding. That was actually just recently. No reason for these colors other than it kind of matches with the month, and that way I can just differentiate between what I'm going through. So at the top, I always put my income, and this is my work income first, and then I go to my business income, which is going to be coming from this spreadsheet. I will show you that in just a moment. Other income is anything I make on the side, so credit card, bonuses, if I get gifts, something like that, that would go here. So then I add all of that up to be my total income. I also include what I pulled from my sinking funds, because then it actually makes these numbers more correct, because typically it would look like I'm spending more than I actually make, because it's subtracting, you know, if I spend in personal, that is money that I pull from my personal sinking fund, and so it makes up for it. So I started to include that, and I separated it out from my actual income because it's not income, but I do make a total. So this is my actual income for the month, and then I total what I actually had in my bank account because I pulled that from my sinking funds. These numbers here are just what I pulled from my two separate sinking funds. One was for personal and one was for taxes. So, and then once we get down here, this looks basically exactly like what I share on my written budget. So I put all of my expenses on the left-hand side. I put what I'm going to be budgeting for the month, and then I total up my spending. So typically, I honestly do this manually. So you'll see for groceries, I went back through my bank statement at the end of the month and added everything up that I spent on groceries. However, sometimes you'll see here for, when was this, February, every time I went grocery shopping, I started filling this in. I started calculating the sum of all of my purchases, and that is how I got that total, and I am starting to do that for March as well. So right now I've only gone grocery shopping once, so it only has one, but I will fix that to make the sum of all of my trips so I can log it every single week. That is the main thing that I need to track, because for the most part I'm not doing, crazy spending. And honestly, when it comes to groceries and things that I commonly purchase, I have an idea in my mind about what I should be around. So if I'm around $60, $70 at the grocery store, then I'm probably good. And honestly, I don't stress about going crazy over that number. For that is how I just typically fill this in as something comes up, or at the end of the month, if anything. And then on the right-hand side with these color changes is the difference between my budget and what I actually spent. So if the amount is negative, like for groceries, then that means I went over budget and it will turn red. And if it is positive and it turns green, that means I was under budget, and the white means I was on budget. So it zeroes out. And it does the same thing for the totals. So all of this totals up the total amount I'm expected to spend, the total amount I actually spend, and then I like to exclude my debt and savings because I don't really count that as spending. This is automatically set up to calculate that number. And then down here, what this means is income minus expenses. So it will take my total money in minus the total of my expenses, and I will get this number, because then I will be able to see how much I can put towards my debt for the month. And you can see here with my actual spending, it's a lot lower. Same thing for January. But this green number under the budget column really allows me to determine how much extra I can put to my debt for the month. Now, if I go back to 2020, so this is obviously for 2021, if I go back to 2020, I did the same thing. And at the end of it, I totaled up everything. And everything does kind of line up, but not as good as it could. So I made a new spreadsheet, which is this one, and it's honestly my favorite. So across this green section, this is my income, this is my gross income, and then my net income. So what I have calculating here is my gross income minus what I put to my taxes. As you guys know, I pay quarterly estimated taxes. None of my income is taxed. And in the red, this is just a list of all of my expenses. And then I put in for each month how much I actually put to that expense. So this basically, I fill this out at the end of the month. I could have this autofill, but I just would rather do it myself because it's honestly easier to manually put it in. But if you scroll over to the right, it adds up everything. So it takes the year-to-date total, which is YTD. And so you can see so far this year, I've put $2,437 to taxes, $1,800 to sinking funds, so on and so forth. And then I have it calculating over here what percentage of that expense is of my income. So obviously it's gonna look a little wonky at first because my income is, this isn't my full income for the year, but as time goes, it's going to make more sense and actually be more accurate numbers, a real reflection of what I'm spending on, food or debt, savings. Yeah, so that does automatically calculate though. And if we scroll down in this purple section, this is what I put to debt for the month. So with my car, you can see in January, I put almost $2,500, in February, almost $1,900, and then for my student loans, 0. So then I added this recently since I'm starting to save for my student loans and not actually paying down the debt. So I made that a separate row. And again, this adds up on the right-hand side for what I've actually put to that for the year. And the pink section is the amount I actually have in total debt. So for each one. And for my car, I paid it off in February, so at the end of February it was at 0. My student loans have been the same. Basically, I fill this in on the last day of the month because that's when everything is finalized, you know? Then similar idea here with the blue section. So this is what I'm actually putting to my savings and or investments. So the bulk of these are my sinking funds, and then I do have my M1 spend account on here, which is my student loan savings, my Roth IRA, how much I'm putting each month, and then how much I am investing. So outside of my Roth IRA, of course. And then if I need to add a row, I can do that. And then for the total, it adds it up at the end of each month and also will add up the year to date. Then this teal section is what is actually saved at the end of the month. So again, I do this on the last day of the month when everything is good, or on the first day of the following month, whichever you prefer to do. But typically on the last of the month is when interest comes through, the interest earned, and obviously I'm probably going to put more to debt on the last day of the month. So that's why I do that. So at the end of January, these are the totals that I ended up with, the end of February, and then I'll update for the end of March. And this adds up that total. And then down here I have my investments. So these are the values of my current investments, my Roth IRA, and then with M1 Invest, and I have that totaling up. And then down here is, I had that wrong for a second. So down here is the sum of my savings total as well as my investment total, and that goes down here. This yellow section should auto-populate. So this is where I keep track of my net worth. I also use Personal Capital to track my net worth. However, I noticed that they've been having trouble with connecting a few of my accounts. Specifically, my car loan was not connecting. I did pay it off now, so it doesn't really matter. I was able to just delete that, but that was not connecting. And then my M1 spend account does not connect properly with them, so I'm not able to see my actual net worth, and I don't like that. So I started tracking it manually as well. And the reason I did this too was because one of my clients actually asked for me to create a net worth tracker, and I went ahead and did that, and I decided to use it as well because it's pretty convenient. And this auto-populates, so it will fill in whatever I have entered up here, the total amount that I have on the end of the month. That'll be my total assets. I also add my checking account on here, and that'll be whatever I have on the final day of the month as well. I do not keep track of the value of my car. I probably wouldn't keep track of the value of my house either whenever I happen to buy one, just because I prefer to track just my liquid assets, I guess. Is that the right term? I don't know. I just don't think that my net worth should include my car and things of that nature because, like, I don't know. I just prefer not to track it. I know that's a personal thing that some people prefer to do. So that adds up all of my assets, and then my liabilities. Those are my debts, of course, and this also auto-populates, and I can see my current net worth. So then if we go over here, everything will auto-populate over here as well to line up with each month, and then it will fill in this chart. So then I can see what my net worth is every single month and the progress that I'm making. And obviously, who doesn't love visuals? So then you can see a little graph of what your money's doing. This year at a glance tab really helps to make sinking funds for me, and this is also what I recommend my clients do. This was also inspired by one of my clients, so I got the idea from her, really. So it's divided by month, and I write down how much I expect to spend in, you know, whatever's happening in that month and how much I expect to spend on it. So that's what I fill in, and then from here I can determine how much I actually need to save in my sinking funds by that time. And this is a really great way to be organized with that, because sometimes people don't know what sinking funds they want to create or how much to even save in them. So I really like to do this because I can just add everything up and make the decision from that. If you go back to my 2018 and 2019 tabs, you'll see that I wasn't even budgeting. I literally was just keeping track of my spending. This adds up really nicely. At the end of the year, you can just total everything that you spent. But that is why I created the yearly tracker, because then you can see everything that I'm spending in one spot and at the end of the year. So then I can keep track of if I need to cut back for next year, or maybe I can check in every quarter, every 6 months or something like that, and just manage it that way. Now I will also show you how I keep track of my side hustle income and my expenses. I've been doing this for a couple of years. Well, on to 3 years now. So this was 2019, 2020. 2020 looks the same. And now we're in 2021, and you can see that I just put the source of income, so where I get my money from, and then I fill in that amount for every single month, whatever happens to come in. I take a total of that, and then I have this orange number which calculates what I put aside for taxes. So I just do 20% because I write off a lot of my expenses. Then this green number is my actual profit then. So it is the taxes subtracted from the total, and that's my profit. And then if you go to the far right hand side, you will see the totals of all of those, and as well as for each source of income. Same idea with my expenses. So I just list everything that I pay for on the left hand side, and then it also goes by month, and I just fill this in as, most of it is predictable because everything is either a monthly expense or an annual expense, and then if anything I need to add, I will fill it in here as well. So the yellow ones are annual expenses, so I'd like to keep track of those. And some of these aren't even correct because, for example, this July expense is what I paid last year, but it will probably change for this year. It's probably gonna be a little bit more expensive because I know this was like a prorated amount, but I like to keep it highlighted because I know that I'm expecting an annual expense for that. And again, this totals up on the side. I like to keep some of my things sticky. What I mean by that, I guess you freeze the column so this stays still and I can see, whatever month I wanna see or the totals I wanna see, I can align it right next to that. That's the same thing with my tracker. I have the top frozen so I can see the month, and then the far left column frozen so I can line it up wherever I want to see specifically, which is really nice. Now I do have templates, and that's what these are. So these have just some examples. This is the budget I use, what I just showed you all. And then this is what I use with my clients, and what we do is copy this and paste it to the far right, so it would go over here and just keep going through the year, or depending on how long I work with each client. But this is the same thing. It's going to change. If you go into the negative, it'll turn to red. If you're under budget, it will turn green. I have an explanation of everything. If you click a cell that has a little triangle in the top right hand corner, it will explain what's going on, and these are just examples that you would have to delete. So there are directions on how you can actually use this for yourself, because the links that I have below are not, you can only view them, so you have to make your own copy. But like I said, this is the budget tracker that I use. If you prefer to track your spending every single week, this is a great option, because then you'll fill in each time that you spend in that category, and it will do the same idea. And finally, there is the yearly finance tracker, which is what I just went through. It does have a description of what each section actually means, what to actually enter in there. And the yellow section, again, just to remind you, this will auto-populate except for the checking account. So you, aside from this row, the checking account, you would not need to make changes. You would not need to fill anything in the yellow section. It would just fill in automatically. And then it will also track your net worth each month, and the chart would update as well. So this will be linked down below. I know that's a lot, but I just wanted to make sure I explained everything so you can see how obsessed I am with all of this. I use a lot of these things with my clients when I'm coaching them because it's a great way to get organized, and I know this has helped a lot of people to get organized. So if you are interested in actually being, held accountable through all of this and learning how to do this on your own, then you can sign up for coaching with me. I'm currently booked at the moment, but be sure to get on my email list and I will keep everybody updated there on when I'm available again. This will be linked down below. And I was also wondering if you guys wanted to see a tutorial on how to set up your own Google Spreadsheets. I know everybody does things a little bit differently, and maybe you want to do something on your own or just experiment with different things, or you mess something up on the templates that I provide you and you don't know what to do. So let me know if you would prefer some sort of demo. I know there's probably tons of them on the internet, but I don't know if you want something specific to what I'm doing. I do love having everything written down as well. I write a lot of things down. I often try to calculate how much debt I can pay off or what my taxes are going to be, things like that. But I also absolutely love these spreadsheets and think they are a necessity when it comes to budgeting and just tracking everything that comes to paying off your debt and even with investing, because it just keeps it in such an organized place. There's honestly no way that you can mess things up because everything auto saves. So even if you mess it up, you can go back and fix it. There's like a reverse button and you can see when certain edits were done. So I think once you just start to understand the basics of it, you will become a lot better, and there's just really no way of messing it up. Obviously, it's really customizable too, which is a huge plus. So whatever you don't like, you can get rid of, or you can add something in if you wanted to keep track of it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will try my best to answer. And if you want me to do a demo video, please also let me know about that. But otherwise, that is everything. It's not as complicated as it looks. It really works for me, so that's the most important thing. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.